Inside the Xerox Palo Alto Research Center, now called just PARC, there's a shrine to the technologies that were invented here, from the computer mouse in the 70s to Caterpillar-like robots in the 90s to new innovations even today. It's room 2306, the PARC Innovation Exhibit, and it's an even more amazing place when you've got a tour guide like Bob Metcalfe, the father of Ethernet. We were at PARC to talk to him about innovation and the future of basic research, but with Ethernet's 40th birthday coming up and Bob's famous Ethernet memo splattered on the wall, we couldn't resist. We asked him about 1973 and about the first days of Ethernet.
So this is the memo in which Ethernet was invented and named, I might add. We had been kicking it around. So as you know, nothing is invented on a single day.
Right.
But if there were a day, this would be the day, May 22nd, 73. And you'll notice the word ether is prominent there. So we used to call this the Alto Aloha net because the Ethernet was derivative from the Aloha net. And the Alto was the PC that we were going to be connecting in numbers. You see these Altos here, like that one over there. And then we stopped calling it the Alto Aloha network because we wanted to network things other than Altos and because Ethernet had progressed so it barely resembled AlohaNet anymore. This is in the days when Ethernet had transceivers separate from the cards. So a cable would go down through the wall to the PC on your desk, and that's where the Ethernet card would be.
Wow.
And then this is the Alto itself that would fit under your desk. And here's the removable media. And I mention this because at the very start, before we had Ethernet working, people said, what do you need Ethernet for? You can put your documents on the removable disk and carry it over to the printer.
Yeah.
That would be called SneakerNet. And so why would we want to spend whatever it was, $1,000 to buy a card to go on a cable when we can just carry the data over?
Yeah, there you go.
Well, we put it in, we built the printer, we connected the PCs to the printer, and all you had to do is hit P.
Of course, PARC isn't just a museum. Research still happens here.
Did innovation leave when I left, or did you guys continue?
We've continued a few things.
You have kept it.
So people are still doing things here.
We are still doing things.
That's Steve Hoover, PARC's current CEO, and he joined us as we talked about basic research, about who should be doing the work that Xerox PARC used to do.
Well, there's two schools of thought on this. I'm sure there's 10 schools of thought, but two that bear mentioning. One is the lament that Bell Labs no longer exists.
Okay, right.
It's a mere shadow of its former self. And woe is me, and research is down. And most people take that point of view. I have the opposite point of view. I think research universities, and by the way, I pair PARC with Stanford in my mind, so it's part of this university environment here. The research universities are the place we should be doing research. So an entity that tries to keep all of its people is really retarding innovation, because it's those people who carry, like me, carrying Ethernet out into the world and suffering the slings and arrows of the innovation process. That is my current model of innovation. And so I was a professor at Stanford part-time when I was here at PARC.
PARC is closer to that model now. The facility still does research for Xerox, but also hires itself out to other companies, more than 100 these days, and it creates spin-offs.
It can be better to spin it out yourself, to find a collaborator out there and partner with them and advance them.
That's the other part of my model, by the way, is research universities paired with startup culture.
Okay.
And that's where the students go. They go to, and sometimes professors too, go to the startups, and those startups become, that's one of the forms of a vehicle, an innovation vehicle.
If you were to go back in time and get to run PARC, starting around, say, 1973, 1975, is there anything you would do differently? Or are there hopes that you would have for this organization that never came true?
So that's a difficult question, but my blunt answers are different people. We thought that we could commercialize, I was on this team, so I'm not going to say they. We thought we could commercialize these technologies ourselves. So I became a manager of engineering. My boss, Dave Liddell, who was a colleague here from research, he became the vice president of a division. And we were in a company that had a monopoly mentality, because Xerox had built its business on the copier patents. So based on a monopoly mentality, the company wasn't a very competitive organization, and as you know, the computer industry is fiercely competitive, so we got our face eaten, basically.
Okay.
And by the way, that printer over there became a $10 billion business for Xerox. So maybe the personal computer didn't, but the printer did.
The printer did, yeah.
Yeah, so that's a
Yeah,
big
Xerox
part of
did
it.
okay overall, but
I think Xerox did fine, but you're right, there is a lot of contention about how much better they could have done, like
yeah.
be Cisco, be Apple, be all the companies that have happened since. Well, I'm old enough to think that I probably suffer from the feeling that PARC was never as good as when I was here. But I've met some of the people here today. Again, there's a lot of brilliant work going on here, and it's just egomaniacal to think that it's not. And PARC has changed business models. They're no longer a captive research lab of Xerox. They're now doing research for 100 companies. So it's a slightly different arrangement.